In this series, I want to play the first Yu-Gi-Oh video games in release order. Already, this series is a failure, as there's zero way to play the actual first game in English, which is a huge shame. And no, it was not Forbidden Memories. Apparently there was a monster raising and battle game using the monster chess game from the manga as a basis. I did not even realise there was another PS1 Yu-Gi-Oh game. Hopefully a fan translation is being worked on, and I can retroactively add the game to this series. Speaking of fan translations, playing the game we are playing is only possible thanks to Darman, so a huge thanks to them. Released in 1998, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters is the second Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game. It closely resembles the manga narratively and uses the Duel Monsters card game as its battling mechanic. It came out 2 months before the card game and as such does not actually follow the rules of the real card game. At all really. Much like its more famous younger brother, Forbidden Memories, Duel Monsters is a game all about fusion. You can fuse weaker monsters to create more powerful ones to take down your opponent. Forbidden Memories fusions are so fun and often creative, it made me very excited to learn that this game is essentially the predecessor of that whole system. As the developers did not know the official rules of the card game, they had to go with what the manga did, which was basically anything it wanted. But the idea of fusions are crypt spells that only work with monsters that meet certain requirements, like Horn of the Unicorn, only working on dark monsters with horns. So it won't work on dark monsters without horns. And field advantage were the key factors they went with. The gameplay is not identical to Forbidden Memories though, as we will soon find out. One note I thought was interesting after my time with the game is just how much power creep exists between Duel Monsters and Forbidden Memories. In just around a year, the top attack values you see out of vanilla monsters went from 2,500 to 3,000-ish, to 3,750 and 4,500. Here is how an average duel goes early on. We can choose our opponent, and they give us a bit of dialogue which will change after we beat the opponent 5 times. Here we can alter our deck and begin the duel. The player always goes first in this game, which means you can play the first monster or set up a field spell. However, you cannot attack on the first turn, meaning you have to play something beefy or else you're going to get overwhelmed. I play M Warrior, number I don't remember, in defense mode, since nothing Yugi has can beat over a stat as high as 1000. This card is also a playmaker for our deck, being able to be fused into some bigger monsters. Now we observe the biggest gameplay difference between this game and Forbidden Memories. There is no hand fusion, which makes this game way slower. I have the materials to create an enchanted mermaid, the materials being any female monster and root water. But we have to have one of the materials face up on the field to use it in a fusion. Mechanically, this means it's better to play the stronger monster first and keep the weaker monster material in hand. In later game duels though, it can be really hard to fuse monsters since they can be beaten over by duelists that can play high attack monsters from the hand like Kaiba. It also means this game is a lot slower paced than Forbidden Memories. Our next big play that we can make is fusing our M Warrior 9000 with a Fire Reaper to create a Skeleton Warrior, which also has 1200 attack, just like our Enchanted Mermaid, and at that point there's nothing Yugi can do to beat our field. When the CPU knows that it's beat like this, it just sets face down defense monsters, and that's it. I don't think I've ever seen the CPU in this game use a spell card to its advantage to try and win a battle, at least not this early on. I don't even remember if the late game opponents do, but I guess we'll see. Everything in this game is really slow, from the menus to the battles themselves. But after you do defeat an opponent, you get a little bit more text with them, and then you get given a card. And you can find the drop rates for the cards online, which is essential to building a deck that can actually beat the game. The game has a pretty terrible start. It doesn't explain any mechanics, but to be fair to it, I don't have the manual. I do enjoy it following the manga. As a kid, I owned the first few episodes of Duelist Kingdom on DVD, which is what this game follows. And as a kid, my dream game was a whole 3D adventure game with some light platforming and Pokemon style battle initiation where other duelists would stop you on your way and challenge you to a duel. So this game kind of satisfies a tiny bit of that. But the game doesn't actually explain the story or why you're on a boat. And if you don't squint at the background on the duelist selection, you wouldn't even realize this is meant to be the boat taking you to Duelist Kingdom. The first 4 NPCs don't know how to fight at all. I guess all but the weakest creatures they won't set an attack, and they don't fuse. One time, I think Yugi did set a monster with 900 defense, and I actually had to attack again with another monster. And that's about as involved as the early duels get. So this is not a good start. It takes 20 duels to pass this part, and it's pretty mind-numbing. I can imagine being sat in the back of a car on a really long journey, and this game being my only distraction. And I'm not sure if it could have held my attention for that long. Some of the monster designs are certainly cool, and the characters look cool too, but the gameplay is just so slow at the start, I'm not sure if it could have held my attention. The fact that it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Could have carried me along, but if I didn't know what Yu-Gi-Oh! Was, I'm not sure if this game would have grabbed me. The fun of my first powerful fusion, which was Flame Swordsman, did get me through it. And thank God for the Wiki, which is the way I know what fusions I have. At this point, my fusions were Enchanted Mermaid, Flame Swordsman, Flame Ghost, Skeleton Warrior, Barox, and Cherubin, which is like a weaker Flame Swordsman. So my attack cap is 1800 right now. I am glad I stuck with the game though, because it does start to feel a lot more like Forbidden Memories with the amount of freedom you have in Fusion a little bit later on. After beating the first 4 opponents 5 times, Duelist Kingdom opens up for you. Like before, you can fight any opponent in any order, but the first opponent that it shows you is Weevil Underwood, who's a sniffling cunt. I hate to say it like that, but he is. Imagine throwing Exodia, one-of-a-kind cards, over into the ocean. I'm shocked there wasn't a segment about deep sea diving, retrieving them, and maybe bumping back into Mako, who is another opponent on Duelist Kingdom. The thing is though, a lot of these opponents don't offer any challenge, just like before, even if their numbers are slightly higher. The cards they drop though are pretty good. Weevil Underwood drops Giant Flea, which is a 1500 attack beta, which is not bad for stalling out the game until you can access your strong fusions. So instead, let's limit test. Okay, it's time to limit test. Let's fight Seto Kaiba. I fully expected to lose this duel, but you know, maybe we'll surprise ourselves. Okay, it looks like our biggest monster is Sonic Maid, 1200 attack. Let's see if Kaiba has anything that can beat over that. 1800. I don't know if we're going to be beating Kaiba, guys. I love the descriptions of the monsters in this game. This was a fan translation, but there's also a character limit. So you get really odd descriptions like this. Claims to be a god of battle, no proof. That's just fantastic. Okay, so it's a fairy. I'm pretty sure Yami would downgrade its attack a little bit. Okay, 1260 is a lot more manageable, but I'm still struggling to see if I can beat this card. 1500. Yeah, this is looking like a loss. Yeah, despite this just being a lost match, there's no way to surrender. So this match ended up going on for another 2.5 minutes. Eventually, I just hit into him with my own monster to end the suffering. And of course, Kaiba has to be a real dick about it. Well, it's good that we limit tested because now we knew where we stood. And it turns out Kaiba's actually one of the strongest opponents in the game. Even though there's a couple of stages after the Duelist Kingdom, he's still probably in the top 2. I'm not going to show the duels because they were complete pushovers, but Revel and Rex gave me a few cards. But we're actually going to be grinding out Jury. So for the sake of your time, I'm going to be showing these duels in 8 times speed. We're going to be farming Joey's drops, which are really good for the warrior deck we've fallen into. It contains Sojourn, which is a powerful field spell that really buffs our warrior and beast warrior cards, and that's going to help us hit over our opponents who have strong cards just by default. So once we have those cards, our game plan is going to be dropping a Sojourn on the field and then playing a legendary Misaki or a warrior from the Far East next turn. That's going to be boosted to about 1500 attack, and then we can play Flame Swordsman on top of that. It's still not quite strong enough to beat that 1800 beta that Kaiba played, but hopefully if he played something else, we would have been able to survive into Flame Swordsman. Equip cards don't work quite the same way as you'll be used to. They don't just give you a flat statistic like they do in Forbidden Memories and in the normal game. For example, you would expect a legendary sword to give a warrior 500 attack, but instead it works on percentages, and the more you stack equips and bonuses onto a card, the better the percentage gets and the stronger it becomes. So proportionately, a card with a field spell in its favor and a couple of equips is going to be hitting well over 3000 or 4000 attack depending on the creature. Overall, I dueled Joey about 30 times and my deck is looking a lot better because of it. This game is very grindy, so know that if you want to play it yourself. Luckily, I have the turbo option on my emulator, which is probably the only reason I could actually put up with it. Ah, Mai Valentine. Did anyone else have a crush on this character as a kid, or just me? I'm the age now that she was in the anime, which is pretty odd to think about, but I guess that means that it could actually work out, right? Anyway, she says she wants to crush me, and I guess I don't want that. That's questionable. I'm going to add a card I just got from Joey into our deck. Man, this is so slow. Let's speed this up. Ah, it's Hero from the East. Okay, 1100 attack. It's better than most stuff we have right now. And he does go into Flame Swordsman, so he's right into the deck. It's time to duel. I guess not. The game doesn't actually tell you how many cards you have in your deck at the time, so you kind of have to just come out and see if it will let you play. Anyway, let's go back into the deck, sort this out, and then we can actually face Mai. I'm not sure how strong she is, so we're going to play this one carefully. Ryu Koshin is our biggest body in our hand, so he goes into the field in attack position. What a shock, she set a monster in defense and returns back to me. Giant Flea is absolutely massive at 1500, so he's going on the field. I'm so used to Joey's bad cards at this point that I attacked with my weaker monster, so now I need to waste an attack with Giant Flea. She played another defense monster, so we're just going to get Hero of the East out to set up for a future turn. And then I'm incredibly greedy with attacking Ryu Kushin again instead of my Giant Flea, but it actually worked out this time. Unless she can do something special, it's looking like a win for me. Whatever perfume tricks she's trying just aren't working. Maybe she has a Harpy's Dragon that she's just waiting to top deck. This is her last chance, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not impressed by the crushing she was meant to give me. The Giant Flea is just too big for her. Okay, so the duels so far have been either incredibly easy or way too hard. It's not like we even had a chance against Kaiba. But trust me, this is the part of the game where it actually starts to come together and feel quite fun. Well, after I grinded some of the other opponents, especially Joey, a bit more, the next few opponents, like Panic, not only have amazing designs, but are actually fun to fight and about equal to you in power. Also, Bandit Keith gives some amazing drops, and he's actually fun to fight too. I streamed the entirety of my playthrough of Duel Monsters on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/coldconceptg. Feel free to follow me if you'd like to see me play the future Yu-Gi-Oh games in this series live. He looks scary. So we are fighting Panic, who has an amazing design and a sinister presence. This game had some back and forth. Sojin is the card we always want to see turn 1, since it boosts all of our warrior monsters. And I actually take a lot of damage here, attacking into his labyrinth. It's important to note, I cannot pass the turn in this game. You either have to attack or defend with a card, which is actually quite interesting, and it makes turtling a valid strategy. It got me thinking about grinding for more Metal Guardians, which I picked up from a duel with Keith. He has insane defense at 2150. Panic is starting to make me panic. Attacking into his monsters is dealing me a lot of damage. Not knowing what to do straight away, I just keep playing monsters. Then I remembered what Yugi taught Joey in the first episode. I can't just rely on my monsters, I need to use spell cards. But for some reason, I kept summoning monsters, hoping to draw into my fusion materials and continuing to take chip damage. And all the while, I'm not getting over this monster. New drinking game. Take a shot every time I summon a monster instead of using Dark Hole. And if you're drunk enough, don't forget to like and subscribe. So, using Dark Hole to destroy every monster, including my own, is the right play. Despite being able to summon my ace card, Flame Swordsman, his stuff is still massive, like your mum. But I've done worse. It's about time Flame Swordsman showed up. And here he... Oh my fucking god, no way. I just made Cherubin and not Flame Swordsman. This is a disaster. Since Cherubin is not even affected by our meadow and has lower attack than Masaki. Luckily, Panic took it easy on me and didn't destroy Cherubin, and we can still get to the Flame Swordsman, who has 2,340 attack. This is where a lot of the fun in Duel Monsters lies, in the combo system. It can be tricky, and I think I'll remove Candle of Destiny from my deck now, as it seems to just be a trap for me. I get overly eager to make Flame Swordsman again, and play Cherubin instead of Dimension Warrior, which costs me. But with 2340 attack on my Swordsman, I still feel safe, and that is the duel. We get rewarded with a Fiend Sword, a 10 out of 10 drop. Let me review our deck and strategy after finishing the 5 duels with all 3 of these opponents. Our plan is to play Sojourn at all costs, which boosts our warriors and beast warriors by a large margin, even if it means we take damage by not having a monster on the field. Then we play our biggest warriors, who are Dimension Warrior, Crass Clown, Masaki, and Hero from the East. If we cannot do that because the opponent has some big monsters already on the field, then we have some big monsters of our own of different types, like Dogma and Giant Flea. If we need to wall up, we can also play with our Metal Guardian. Once we have a warrior on the field, we can use a fire card to go into Flame Swordsman, and from there, equip him with swords until he is unbeatable. Oh, and there's this new potent strat for this deck. I got a few copies of Fiend Sword, a 1400 attack monster. The thing is, it's recognized as a warrior and can benefit from Sojourn. It turns out we can also easily make a card called Anatsu as well, which is only slightly weaker than Flame Swordsman. Having 2 options to go into is huge for our deck. It's boosted by Dark Energy, which is massive since I have a playset of them and can get them beastly big. If worst comes to worst, we can boost all of our weaker warriors with swords until they're a force to be reckoned with. Okay, let's do it. Let's duel Seto Kaiba. Or as Kaiba would say, let's settle this with a children's card game. Okay, bad impressions aside. 1200 is pretty small, so we'll put out Sonic Maid rather than Dimension Warrior. See, this is a problem. Kaiba actually uses more warriors than basically anything else, meaning that Sojourn will just power his monsters up. And he follows it up with an 1800 attack monster. I don't know if this duel can get any worse. I have the components to make Flame Swordsman, but because this game doesn't have hand fusion, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. And there you can see just how brutal Kaiba is, even after all of that grinding. The thing is though, I play him again, and things go a bit differently. I drew Fiend Sword, one of the best cards in the deck, as well as Sojourn, which will power it up, and all the rest of my warriors. I had what I call a god hand. Not only did we have Sojourn and a 2-card combo into Flame Swordsman, we also have a legendary sword to power up the Flame Swordsman too. And his attack is ridiculous. 3,744, and I drew a Raigeki so we can hit directly anytime we want. I did race the turn playing another Sojourn though. I didn't realise I already played one. And now we can see just how flippant the game can be too. Last time Kaiba destroyed us, and this time we destroyed him. The thing is though, it's like my luck just changed, because I ended up beating Kaiba the next few times I played him. So we actually beat him the 5 times we needed to move on from Duelist Kingdom. Let's have a look at our record against him though. Jeez. Maybe I could come back and try to clean the record up a little bit, but I'm happy with just moving on. Our next duel is against a very interesting character, Simon Moran. He was not initially in the manga or the anime, as far as I can tell, and was an original character first appearing in this game. I know him from Forbidden Memories, where he serves as a guardian for the Thero and protector of the Millennium Puzzle. It's super interesting to see him here. He has that mysterious, occult, ancient Egyptian vibe that I just love from early Yu-Gi-Oh! Here he introduces himself as a hermit living in the mountains. The mountains of Duelist Kingdom, I suppose. Is this some deep lore situation where Duelist Kingdom takes place on top of the Thero's old country? How can Simon even be alive? Maybe we'll find out in a later game. And we've got a bit of a god hand situation. We have Fiendish Sword, Sojin, and the means to make a Natsu. First up is Sojin. Simon uses a lot of magicians, and Ancient Sorcerer is one of my favourite looking Yu-Gi-Oh cards of all time, although it's not the most impressive stat-wise. Looks like we don't really need to Natsu. With Sojin and using Dark Energy, our Fiendish Sword is like unstoppable. If only this dude who likes to use magicians could use a spell card like Waigeki. But hey, if we can make a Nanatsu as well, why the hell not? Honestly, I'm just going to fast forward the rest of the Simon fight, and every fight went pretty much like this. He was a pushover, which is a bit disappointing because he has a really interesting design, and I didn't expect to see him pop up in this game. What kind of a name is Simon for an ancient Egyptian anyway? It just doesn't seem right. He says I'm good for someone learning to use my cards, which is a little bit weird because that made me think there was a lot longer left in this game. But we'll find out that may not be the case. The 5th time we defeat Simon, he now says that we can proceed. But he warns us we should remember to take care of our cards, which I agree with. Maximilian Pegasus. Do you guys know how this guy went out in the manga? In the anime, he's still alive. He's even in GX. But in the manga, let's just say when his eye got taken out, his body didn't respond too well to that. I think Maximilian Pegasus is a fantastic villain. He's powerful. He's a bit creepy. He has a motivation. He just does things in a really weird way. And he likes to cheat, which is awesome for an antagonist. And you know what? Yugi likes to cheat too, so it's a pretty fair game. But we're not Yugi, so let's see if we can handle it. I was really interested to see what cards Pegasus would play. I wondered if he had the Duel Monsters. But our hand-wise, it's looking okay. We got Sojin and Legendary Sword, but no really powerful monster yet. So we'll play Sojin first. Oh man, he's using our best monster against us. Fiendish Sword. Do we have an out? Oh man, the best thing we can hope for is that we draw our own Fiendish Sword so that he doesn't attack into us, and then we can fuse into a Natsu. And what? And he plays in a Natsu? I know that Pegasus kind of reads your mind, or at least your cards, but jeez, it's like he's actually working on me. Oh damn. I just got riped. At the beginning of this duel, Pegasus said that he was the creator of Duel Monsters, so there's no way he could lose. Well, really, he's not the creator of the game, is he? More like he discovered it and capitalized on it and made it a modern thing. The game existed in ancient Egypt. In this weird spin-off video game timeline thing, we actually do get to meet the person who made the original Duel Monsters game back in ancient Egypt, or even before ancient Egypt. But I'm not going to spoil that yet because it's quite interesting. Okay, let's not mess around. Let's go straight back into it. I've got a good feeling about this. Fiend Sword straight off the bat. Our best monsters seem to just be the ones we can put down and just are wall. Not necessarily the ones that fuse into things. So maybe it's time we look at just grinding out a completely new deck with more powerful base stat monsters. god, is that the Rise Mystical Tree? If you're over 25 and own a computer, this game is a must-have. Oh my god, it is. And with that, we defeated Maximilian Pegasus one time. And we pulled a Natsu. Straight up a Natsu, no fusion required. Now the most powerful card in our deck. We went back and forth on duels, winning, losing, winning, losing. But eventually, this happened. Oh my god, we got enough for a Natsu. Wait, did we beat the game? No way. This is the credits. And I can tell this would have taken ages if it wasn't on 4 times. So, it took a lot of people to make this game. Probably, yeah, shout out to the translators. Okay. The end. This is not the end. There has to be some secret duelists. I'll be shocked. Pegasus was actually easy. I mean, we dropped 2 games out of 7. This is actually the end. Dude, there's no way, man. That's right. The game just stopped. At the end. There was no way to go back to the menu. I couldn't press forward. That was the end. So I booted up the game one more time. Nose. Oh my god! Let's go! Let's go! That's right, secret boss, Yami Yugi. The soul that dwells inside of Yugi Moto. But I'm not going to fight him yet. But I'll tell you what, he's way harder than anyone I've faced so far, apart from maybe Kaiba. So I'll make a deal. If this video gets 400 views or 50 likes in the first month of it being uploaded, I'll do a special stream where I grind out a much better deck and take on Yami Yugi. And I'll even make it a fully edited video. So if you want to see that, don't forget to like. So what are my final thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters for the Game Boy? Well, I think it's a very flawed game. I think they did really well trying to make the system from the manga work, but it's very different to what the game ended up being in real life. I see this as a rudimentary predecessor of Forbidden Memories. The main difference is not having access to hand fusion, which makes the game so much slower. And that's on top of the game already just running slow and having slow text scroll. If the game had hand fusion, it would honestly be so much better, but it doesn't. The story is very bare bones, but the presentation is pretty nice. Oh, and also the fact that the computer duelists never use spell cards is just such a downer, because many duels would have been made way more interesting if they threw out a different field spell, equipped a monster, or used the Raigeki, although I know it might have been a bit unfair on the player. Despite all this, Duel Monsters can be quite fun, especially towards the end when you've got some good fusions and different ways to go into them. I ended up with a very warrior-centric deck, but who knows, maybe if I had gotten better cards from Revel or Mako, I could have an insect or water deck. The game is very replayable. You get a specific guaranteed card every 10 times you defeat an opponent. For example, I beat Joey a bunch, and if I beat him more times, I would have got Red Eyes Black Dragon guaranteed. Overall, I think this game is humble beginnings, and I can see how this battle system could be iterated on to become more fun in the future. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the sequel for this game, which came out for the Game Boy Color just a year or so after this. If you want to see me tackle that, don't forget to subscribe. Wow, what an adventure we just went on, and it's the first step in a much bigger one. This video took a long time to edit, and I hope you enjoyed. If you feel like supporting me further than just liking and subscribing, you could head over to my Patreon and support me there. You get access to a HD archive of all of my videos, and if you're into miniature war games, I offer a really cool paint over surface where I take your miniature and I edit it to look really cool and like it's in a real location. Or if you just feel like supporting me financially, that's okay with me too. Thanks for watching.